Hello everybody, Bricks for Dom here, and today I've built a Lego mock for Brick Creations mock contest. So first of all, a huge congratulations for them on hitting an insane milestone. So now let me actually talk about the mock. So main theme was supposed to be magical discovery, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, the backstory of this mock is that, as you can see, there is a massive fight about to go down in sort of like a cave dungeon. So first of all, we have a squad of heroes. We have a knight, we have sort of like a barbarian, we have a very skilled archer, as well as a wizard, as well as a dwarf. So sort of similar to the Lord of the Rings or the Hobbit, but instead of fighting orcs, they are fighting some demons. And so now you might be thinking, what are they fighting for? Most of the time, whenever there's a battle going down, there's a purpose. And well, here's the purpose. As you can see underneath this boulder, there is a lot of treasure. And so the wizard is using his magical powers to lift the boulder to discover all of the treasure underneath the boulder. And as you can see, the wizard has a map, and so that is the way how they were able to find the treasure. And I guess the demons simply followed the squad of heroes. And so that is pretty much the backstory of this mock. And so there's about to be a massive battle going down. There are of course a lot of demons. There are also some bigger demons, which I will show closer later. There's also an evil wizard behind the demons, which is probably the individual who summoned all of the demons to sort of like go into battle. Looking at the details, there are these 4 pillars, which I tried to make them as detailed as I could. Maybe I added a little bit too much detail. They're sort of like hyper detailed, but I think that's alright. I also tried to add some texture onto the ground. The actual boulder is a fairly simple design. I think I could have made it a little bit more round and more natural shaped, but I think that's okay. Obviously, there's the treasure underneath the boulder, and the main play feature of the boulder, if you can even call it that, is fairly simple. I did try my best to make sort of like a manual play feature where you don't have to lift the boulder yourself, but only have to turn a knob or something like that, but it didn't quite work out. I'm not that good with technique and so on, and so that is something that I should improve on the future. But thankfully it doesn't take away too much from the actual look of a mock. We're simply just, a massive translucent sort of like stick going down the middle. And yeah, that is pretty much it. Obviously on the ceiling of the dungeon there are a bunch of stalagmites and so on. And there are also some roots coming from a tree. And as I mentioned before, I want to show you a closer look at the bigger demons, and so I simply brick built them. I have a bunch of these printed Nexonite Technic ball pieces, and I decided to use them in some way, and so I just simply made the bigger demons using those head pieces. And for now in this mock there are only 2 demons, but I actually have a few more. There just simply wasn't enough space to add any more, and so maybe I will use them for a different mock. But yeah, I really like how they turned out. I think they look fairly unique. They aren't the most difficult to create. They are actually fairly simple, but I think they still add a lot of character to the mock. And so I am quite happy with how they turned out. One of the demons has sort of like armor, so like leather armor on top of himself. He's also missing a hand, and so instead he has sort of like a dagger. And the other demon is a lot taller. He has sort of like a very interesting shape for his back, and he also has a very cool looking flail. And so above the dungeon we of course have the surface, which is a fairly grassy and rocky area. I thought that the grass seemed pretty flat, and so to add some elevation I decided to add some extra rocks. And as you can see, the surface is sort of like free formed. It has very rough edges because I didn't want for it to be just a regular square or rectangle. And so if you have some imagination, you could imagine how both the surface and the dungeon, they go farther out. This is simply just a small slice of a pie of the actual, area. And so yeah, I really like how this turned out. I also decided to add a small little tree just to add some extra elevation. It is a very simple build once again, just using a few Technic connectors. And just to give it a magical look, I decided to use lavender leaves, you know, just so it would be a little bit more interesting, add an extra pop of color. And as you can see, right underneath the trees, we have the roots, which are going into the dungeon. And just so that there could be some more action up above on the surface, I decided to add the shepherd minifigure who is walking his goat, and he is completely oblivious on what is happening beneath him. He also has a mushroom in his bag. And just so that this translucent pole wouldn't be completely random, I decided to add an extra bird. And so whenever you lift the boulder up, the bird also sort of like flies further up into the air. And so yeah, I think that is pretty cool. But I mean, yeah, this is pretty much the end for the mock. And so for the end of the video, I will simply add some more cinematic shots of the whole mock with some epic music behind it. Video. Thank you all so much for watching. I had a lot of fun making this mock. It has been quite a while since I've made something similar to this style, and so it was pretty fun to use all of my minifigures who are just sitting behind on display. And once again, a huge congratulations to Brick Creations for reaching an insane milestone. So yeah, Bricks of them out. Goodbye.